Welcome to the Live to 110 podcast. My name is Wendy Myers, and you can find me on live to110.com. Sorry about the drilling and really annoying noise in the background. I just want to welcome you to my home that's also known as a construction site. We're building a new deck. We had a deck it was completely rotted out. And so we have to completely replace all the decks on our home. Yay, so much fun. So there's been lots of noise going on for the past 2 or 3 months. It's been really hard to record a podcast with all this turmoil. Today we are having Dan Obier on the podcast. He is going to be talking to us about how to increase your metabolism. Everyone is trying to increase your metabolism. I don't know about you, but I've been trying to do it for decades, and I've read all kinds of books on how to lose weight and increase your metabolism. So I thought that'd be a very good topic for a podcast to cover. So you're going to learn all about diet and supplements and exercise and lots of interesting tips and tricks on how to increase your metabolism and reduce your waistline. This podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please consult your healthcare practitioner before engaging in any treatment that we suggest today on the show. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I'm so excited to announce almost the launch of my program, bodybiorehab.com. This is an online health program that will help to increase your metabolism. It's a 30-day structured program. It's going to have 30 days of recipes and meal plans. It will have all kinds of tips about exercise, supplementation, proper supplementation, all about detoxification, which is the key thing missing in most people's health regimen. It will also have lots of tips about stress, how to reduce stress, and improve your sleep quality. So it's going to hit on all those 5 important pillars of health. Our guest today is Dan Obier of metabolicmotivation.com. He has worked as a wellness coach for over 20 years, coaching NFL and NBA players in Miami, working in medical weight loss cruise lines. He has conducted seminars, fat loss, and fitness training at hospital-based wellness centers in the U.S. He has also conducted food and wine industry consulting in South America and luxury active adventure travel in Europe. Very busy guy, world traveler. Dan has a Bachelor of Science degree in Health and Human Performance, postgraduate coursework in Psychology and Exercise Science, and a number of professional certifications. Dan launched his wellness site, metabolicmotivation.com, to help people to live better, happier, healthier lives with both primal health strategies, positive psychology, and modern biohacks. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Wendy, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here and to speak to you and your guest.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your role as a metabolic expert?
Yeah, well, I started doing wellness consulting way back in the early 90s, and I was in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and then subsequently went down, headed further south down to Miami to I've always loved Hispanic culture for some reason and got pulled that way. And so what I kept seeing was people were saying, hey, how can I get my metabolism to go, higher? And how can I burn fat? And how can I have more energy? And I was kind of thinking of going to medical school then. And I thought, wellness, this is going to be sort of a little side thing for me for a couple of years, and I'm going to then go to med school. And what happened was it's actually, I got become my full-time thing because I did some seminars on how to maximize your metabolism, and then that became how to motivate your metabolism, and it became very popular. And so here I am now. It's 2015, and I'm really kind of ramping this up.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I ramp my website up too. So much fun.
Yeah, it is.
So why don't you tell everyone, why is everyone's metabolism so slow today?
Well, great question. There is many factors. I would limit it to a few maybe. So let's talk about hormones would be a big factor. And we could talk about things like insulin resistance. We could talk about estrogen or testosterone problems with women and men respectively. We could talk about adenopectin, which is a hormone that's got, oftentimes we don't have enough of it, and it's something we can that we need to help us, optimize our metabolism and burn fat. And that's the good news is it's really easy to boost your adenopectin levels. You could do things like getting enough green leafy vegetables, getting enough magnesium. You can also get that magnesium with pumpkin seeds. So that's one thing. I mentioned insulin resistance. What you can do there, it's very, very common because we're getting so much sugar added to our processed foods that are so easy to get. And that's going to slowly wear out our pancreas and our bodies. Our cells become resistant to all the insulin, which means that we have all this sugar circulating around us inside our body, and our body is never able to burn fat. We're just running on sugar, and it just creates a lot of problems for us. So what you can do there is really limit the sugar intake, limit the carbs, eliminate processed foods as much as possible. And if you've really got an issue with this, you need to, as many people do, you might want to look at eliminating gluten. You might want to really look at going higher in healthy fats, moderate proteins, and really limiting carbs. That's something that's helpful. Another thing I've seen very common would be cortisol problems. Now, cortisol is one of the stress hormones. And, today we live in a 24/7 world of stress, and so that I could do a whole seminar on stress and things. But basically, controlling the stress with getting enough sleep, exercise, working on some cognitive techniques like separating what you can control and what you can't control. That's sort of my go-to strategies.
Yeah. Yeah, talk a little bit more about that, about people's locus of control and some of the mental tips and tricks people can do to help control their stress.
I've gone deeper and deeper into the mental side in the last 5 years or so, because I think a lot of times people know sort of about what they should do nutrition wise and exercise, but I think until you get the mental game dialed in, it's very hard to implement and execute on, whether it's, ramping up your business or ramping up your exercise or whatever. So a couple of things about locus of control. I think the simplest thing is, I suggest to people have a notebook or something you can, and I know we live in all this high-tech digital world, but there are actually studies that show that the act of writing something down for some reason, it seems to be more helpful than doing it digitally, doing it on your computer, although that's okay too. But what I would suggest is every morning, I do with my coaching clients, it's just, hey, take 5 minutes and write down, just do a brain dump, anything that's bothering you. Put it on paper. Okay, just take 5 minutes and make it unfiltered, uncensored. Doesn't have to be PC. It's not for anybody else, but just get it out of your head so that you can see, hey, this person is just bothering me for whatever reason, or I've got too many things to do this, at this certain time of day. Maybe I need to reschedule something. But the idea, take 5 minutes, write it down, and then come back and look at it later, and you may see, hey, it wasn't such a big deal. So that's my simplest thing. Then the second step would be decide what you can control, what you can, alter, and what you can't. So, for example, just yesterday, my wife and I were looking forward to sort of sleeping in a little bit, which was going to be wonderful, and we had sort of a late night celebration with some friends. And so we really woke up at a really early hour, about 6:15, because the neighbor's new dog was just going crazy. Now, what are we going to do? We couldn't do anything about it. So finally, we decided, well, let's just enjoy the morning anyway. But that's some simple tips for you there.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what is your best tip to help people increase their metabolism? What's the number one thing that people can do?
Well, I think the number one thing for most people is to figure out and get really clear on why you want to do this, because the having clarity, having a strong why is more important than the how to. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Get your why lined up, and maybe once again go back to your notebook, make a list of this is why I want to motivate my metabolism. These are the benefits. Here's what I want to go toward. Here's what I want to avoid. Get clear on those. Get them down in black and white in front of you. Put it on your wall at your, or put it on your computer or whatever it might be, so you can see that every day.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've had periods in my life where I've tried to lose weight after I had a baby. And, you can get really, psych yourself up for a week. And then you kind of start to forget, why you're losing weight. And then you have a little bite of a cookie or something, and you just kind of forget your goals. And now I have a little goal sheet that I look at every single morning. I review it every single morning to keep it fresh in my mind as to why I want to avoid sugar and what it's going to feel like when I lose 15 pounds or whatever my goal is. And it's really a lot more helpful than just setting out and just starting to exercise and eat right. And then you just slowly start to forget why you're doing it.
Yeah, the why is so important. And then if I could add another thing would be some kind of tracking.
Yeah.
And that tracking, what we track, as Peter Drucker, the great management consultant, said, what gets measured gets what gets attention gets improved. I think he said it better than I did.
Yeah.
But it's some kind of tracking, and hey, that can be that could be as simple as having a calendar, and you simply X out every day that you exercise. Maybe you set a goal. Okay, I want to exercise 4 times a week, and you have a calendar visually available, and you simply put an X through that day. Okay, that's one really simple way. Or a more complex way would be, to keep a chart on your distances that you walk or run, or the weights you lift, or the classes you go to, or you're spinning, or whatever it might be, or doing some kind of tech stuff, maybe a Fitbit, something like that. Is a very easy way to motivate oneself to get 10,000 steps a day or something like that.
Yeah, I just put an article on the website yesterday about the apps that can help you burn fat, because I think
cool.
It's important to, like, my Fitness Pal and some other ones, my Fatness Pal,
That's great.
to try to record what you're doing, and it can calculate the calories for you. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna look that up. I'm
Yeah.
gonna definitely look that up. So that's on your website. That's at live to110.com. Is that right?
Yeah, apps that help you burn fat.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to definitely look that up. Cool.
So since we're talking about exercise, why don't you tell us the types of exercise that can maximize fat loss and increase your metabolism? Because I think a lot of people will go to the gym and do their little workout that they've been doing for a while. And but I think a lot of people they just don't know the best things that they can be doing to increase their metabolism.
Yeah, sure. Great question. Well, I would say one thing is, it used to be thought, the thought was that the human metabolism was sort of like a mathematical equation. And so we were taught, and this was, back in the early 90s, but it's still very prevalent, that people think, it's all about calorie balance, which meaning, there was this 3,500 calories is a pound of fat. We've all heard that. But what we now know, and a lot of the research points toward the fact that it's actually more complicated than that. And a simpler, better analogy is the metabolism is not a mathematical equation as much. It's more like a chemistry lab. And so there's all these different factors. So Wendy, we've got, if we want to look at, once we getting enough sleep, getting our nutrition dialed in, looking at our macro ratios between the protein, the fats, and the carbs. Once we've got all that, it's more important to eat right than it is to exercise in this. And I would say this: you can't out exercise a bad diet.
Yeah,
That's very, very important, because I've had customers that have said, I'm doing an hour a day of cardio and it's just not working because I'm not losing any weight. I said, well, what about your eating? What are you eating? Well, I thought I could eat whatever. It's just not going to work that way. So I would say step number one is, before you worry about exercise, is get your nutrition dialed in and get enough sleep. And now people are going to say, hey, I don't have time I don't have time to do this or that. But yet most of us, studies show, are watching at least 3 hours of TV a day. Yeah. And even people that aren't watching 3 hours are probably watching 1 hour or 2 hours. And so there's where you can find some time. Now, once you do that, then you start to focus on the exercise. And it's more important. Intensity for a healthy person it's more important to have a higher intensity exercise, perhaps intervals of some sort, is shown to be better for the metabolism than long, slow cardio. Yeah. So that would be one of my tips, is look at some kind of interval training. And then the other is to do some sort of strength training, at least doing the major muscle groups. Doesn't have to be hours and hours. A lot of times I'm probably doing a 20 to 30 minute strength workout twice a week. And if I'm in a pinch, I'm traveling or something, I may do it once a week. And that's working the major muscle groups. I could go into some detail on that if you want.
Yeah, why don't you talk a bit more about HIIT, about the high intensity interval training, and if someone doesn't know what that is.
Sure. Okay. So the HIIT, it's kind of what high intensity interval training, HIIT. If you want to Google that, for anyone who really wants to go into detail, there's tons and tons of studies on that. I'm going to try to simplify it for people who are really busy, who may be in their car listening to this, they're in rush hour somewhere. Here's what you can do. First, you get some kind of cardio equipment. Maybe it's this is simply because if you're a little bit overweight, it's better not to be running initially. This is just for injury prevention, and there are people that can get away with it. But generally speaking, the safest way is to use a stationary bike, or maybe an elliptical machine, or maybe a rowing machine. Do the first 3 to 4 minutes at a moderate pace, gradually working the intensity up. So that's our warm-up phase one. Then we want to go into our working phase, and what we want to do is shoot for anywhere from 5 to 10 intervals. And this might be an interval might be 30 to 60 seconds, where you're going about as hard as you can, without passing out or anything. And this is, once again, assuming we're talking about a healthy population. Someone who's already sort of fit and they want to ramp it up. Now, if you are totally a couch potato, you don't want to go quite as hard, but you can certainly still do the same sequence. Once again, 3 to 5 minutes as a warm-up, and then do 5 to 10 minutes. Think of them as sets. A set of 30 minutes, for example, on the bike or on the rower or on the elliptical machine, a set of 30 seconds to 60 seconds, going fairly hard. And how do you know? When you get out of breath. That's a good indication. When you're out of breath and you really are feeling that lactic acid, then you want to drop your intensity down for anywhere from 1.5 to 3 minutes. So it's what you could call that active rest. And so what you're doing is letting your body recover, but not cooling off. So after that, let's just say 2-minute rest period, then you want to do another set of 30 to 60 seconds. And rinse and repeat for 5. I would initially start off a beginner with 5 of those intervals, and then finish off with a cool down, 3 to 5 minutes at a moderate pace. So that would allow one to do a good solid workout in less than a half hour.
Yeah, and I love it that studies show that doing these short interval trainings, maybe you could do it for 15 or 20 minutes, burns a lot more fat and increases your metabolism long after you work out, much more than say an hour of walking.
Oh yeah, yeah, by all means, and that's probably there's different theories on that, but it's probably based on the hormonal response because when the human body when we call on our body to exert a strong physical effort like that, we're sort of ramping up the output of some hormones we need like growth hormone that tends to decline with age. We also get a boost in our testosterone levels, and it's sort of a regulator, and it helps our body optimize a lot of these hormones that we need.
Yeah, and it also when you're exercising, it uses up a lot of the glucose, so
Oh
that
yes.
forces the glucose into your cells, so that you have less insulin resistance and higher blood sugar.
Yes, yeah, very good point. I actually do a full hour on this subject, so I'm trying to limit it a little bit and not go on and on and off on but yeah, there's so many great factors.
Yeah. And I love that you were talking about how you can't work off a bad diet, because I've tried
Yeah.
that before. And way back in the day, I actually used to eat a pint of Haagen-Dazs every day. I ate a pint of
Wow.
Haagen-Dazs every single night. I had a screaming metabolism at that time. Not anymore, but at that time I did, and I was constantly battling. I was trying to lose some weight, even though I was really, really thin, and but it wasn't happening. And I just kept racking my brains. Why can't I lose weight? I work out so much. So
Right, there you go.
yeah. So let's
Oh
talk
yeah,
about
well, very common situation.
yeah.
Totally.
And I'd experiment with it. I was just after I realized that I couldn't do it, I still kept trying. I started increasing my exercise, trying to work off the sugar and whatnot. But why don't you talk about a little bit about the diet that people need to be eating in order to increase their metabolism?
Sure, sure. Well, my views on diet are that I try not to get into. People ask me, or should I go paleo? Should I go vegan? And what I would say is I don't want to make it a religion, but I would say there's some common sense things, and I have some friends that are vegan. I have friends that are paleo, and I have friends that are what. But they're both. What I find is there's a convergence in the middle, and like many things, the best. So I would say, look at number one is to have a lot of vegetables. And I don't care if you're paleo, you're vegan, or whatever, or if you just want to be healthy. I would say the base of your diet, of your day, if you can get 50% of your calories, maybe not calories because there's vegetables really don't have that many calories, but 50% of the volume of what's on your plate. That's a simpler way to look at it. And this may include, obviously, in the mornings, a lot of us, we're conditioned not to eat vegetables in the morning, which is cool, but there's no reason we can't. And it may just, not seem very appetizing. But you might do some kind of green drink in the morning as a way to get some of your vegetables in. This morning I had a kind of a green smoothie with a 3-egg omelet with mushrooms, and it was wonderful. And so I had that with, and I kind of alternate between green tea. I would say, and I don't want to. You want to limit your caffeine. Some people, if they're very sensitive to caffeine, or they have issues with cortisol, with stress, then they may want to look at even eliminating caffeine for a time. But I find I can do okay with caffeine as long as it's in the first half of the day. And so I had an espresso with a little bit of butter, of grass-fed butter. So I'm getting some healthy fats in, and that keeps my glucose controlled. It's low because there's very little glucose released from that kind of breakfast, and it's a great way to start the day. So I'm forgetting the question.
No, but I think that's very important to eat vegetables for breakfast. That's a rule that I have. For every breakfast, I have to eat vegetables. Like this morning, I
Oh
had
yeah.
eggs and bacon and a gigantic thing of asparagus. with
Hey, there you
tons
go.
of salt, steamed asparagus with tons of salt on it. It was delicious. And I think I tell all of my clients as well that you have to eat vegetables at every single meal in order to get enough in. You to get, 5 or 6 cups of
Sure.
vegetables in. And I think it's also, you were mentioned before that, diet is, you have to have your diet on point to be able to lose weight and have a healthy metabolism. And my trainer, I started working out with a trainer around January 1st and trying to lose some weight, like all of us.
Sure.
And he said, I thought it was 60 to 70% diet in order to lose weight, but it's actually, he said it's 80% diet if you
Yeah,
want
I
to
would
lose
agree.
weight.
I
I
would
was
agree.
shocked
It
by
does
that.
vary with it. It can vary with people, but for the average person, especially with my female clients, I do find that it is a little harder and a little slower. It's life's not fair, but that's simply because if we look at our bodies, generally we have females are going to have less muscle tissue, pound for pound. Females should have more body fat than males. We all sort of know that, but sometimes we forget that. So it does make it it's a slower road
Yeah.
usually for the female body.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of my clients too that if they're females, they're overweight, the problem is fat actively produces estrogen. And
Yes.
estrogen holds more weight on your body. So it's kind of this conundrum of women that are in metabolic jail. The more fat you have on you, the harder it is to lose weight. And the thinner you are, the easier it is to stay thin. And I think it's part of that equation is because the fat produces estrogen.
Yeah, that's something that just thinking back to that. I would think I think only in recent years this is starting to become evident. The hormones are so important, and that's a great point.
Yeah, and also I recently learned this because I had my genes done. I did a 23andme.com
Oh,
genetic
cool.
test, and I ran it through Sterling Zap, which is at mthfrsupport.com. And it gives you this huge health printout about all your genetic SNPs and what they mean for your health. And I had a consult with a practitioner with Sean Bean, who told me all about what my genes meant. And one of them was that I have a problem metabolizing estrogen. And
Wow.
that puts me at risk for estrogen-dependent cancers, but not only, but
Yes.
weight gain as well, because I'm going to have more
Right.
estrogen in my body. But another point he gave me was that if you drink too many cups of coffee, or any caffeinated beverage, that caffeine prevents metabolizing estrogen. So a lot of people that are drinking Cokes all day long or coffee all day long, that's causing more estrogen to be in their body and preventing its metabolism and promoting weight gain. That's kind of interesting.
Wow, that's an interesting thing. I have not run across that. So what he was saying is the caffeine can prevent basically the body from metabolizing the estrogen.
Yeah,
Wow,
exactly.
that's
And also,
fascinating.
people have fatty liver disease, or they have a congested liver, which most of us do because of the 100,000 chemicals in our environment. That's why
Sure.
I propose people do coffee enemas to get that liver mechanically detoxed and get it working
Right.
properly so it can metabolize that estrogen.
Yeah, that's. It's very key. One thing I try to suggest to people with regards to detoxing is not only thinking about it as, hey, this is once a year or something like that, but think about doing something on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And and whatever that might be. And I think the simplest thing is getting enough vegetables, getting enough clean water that's ideally filtered with a reverse osmosis system, and then you store your water in either stainless steel or glass itself, and not in plastic bottles, so that we're avoiding the other chemicals and things like that.
Well, yeah, let's talk about how water boosts metabolism, like something that simple can boost your metabolism.
Well, here's the thing. When many of us are slightly, there you go. You're setting a good example for us. It's in today's modern world. What I find is most of my clients are underhydrated. At least the majority. Not everybody. There are some that maybe that are getting enough water, but even in that case, they're usually drinking from plastic, out of plastic bottles. So then they're getting other chemicals in. So The reason this can be problematic is our human body just, once again, we talked about it's more like a chemistry lab, not a mathematical equation. So if we're underhydrated, things just don't work as well. Our digestion does not work as well. Therefore, we're gonna find that our bowel movements are, not regular. A lot of times that's just based on being underhydrated. When that happens, we've got more toxicity because those waste products are sitting in our gut, and then some of the chemicals might even be reabsorbed into our system again, and there's some evidence of that. It also is going to affect our energy levels because being underhydrated, we're gonna typically have less energy. One of the symptoms that I see with a lot of my female clients is they complain of chronic headaches at times. And I've sort of tracked. I've asked them, tell me when have you noticed this? And I found a lot of them noticed it more in the summer, which makes sense that if you're on the edge of being dehydrated chronically or just even slightly dehydrated, then if you're on the edge in the winter and then you go into the summer when it's hotter and your body is naturally sweating and consuming more fluids and needing more fluids, then you're going to notice, hey, this headache is a signal that something's not working. There's some problem, whatever it might be. And so I find for a lot of them, just by getting enough water, they're noticing, wow, my headaches are disappearing. I'm feeling more energy, and that allows them to have more, willpower and more focus mentally to do the other things, the exercise and to go do the shopping at the farmer's market, all these things that take time and focus. So that's, I could go on and on, but that's a short version.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about specific foods that boost metabolism. There are certain foods that people can eat to increase their metabolism, correct?
Well, there are. Yeah, there are. There's things like, and people may have saw a lot of these before, but, things like the red peppers, things like that have been shown to give you a short-term boost. You could also, another thing that's helpful is there's a what's called dietary induced thermogenesis, DIT, and the way this works is there's a metabolic digestive cost to digesting food, so it takes energy, and the thing is, it's not all food is not the same. So when we're eating processed foods, it's quite easy to it goes in really fast. We can put a lot of calories in. If I was to grab a McDonald's burger, I could take in 1,000 calories in about 3.5 minutes with very little and there's very little fiber to digest. And so I'm not getting a boost. I'm not really boosting my metabolism at all. In fact, I'm probably slowing it down. Whereas if I were to eat the same amount of calories with any type of food, with fresh vegetables and with some lean protein or any protein, it can be fatty protein too, as long as it's healthy, as long as it's grass fed ideally, then I'm going to get a boost in the metabolism from the digestion, this dietary induced thermogenesis.
Yeah. Yeah, and what about protein? I've read that protein burns a lot more calories to digest. So in that that it helps your body to burn calories.
Yes, yeah, by all means. Protein actually, it's been shown to if you looked at the three major macronutrients, your carbohydrates, fats, and then proteins. Proteins have the highest metabolic cost. That means that your body burns calories to metabolize and break down the proteins. So if I'm eating let's say last night we had some big, beautiful, huge shrimp that were wonderful. I cooked them with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of garlic, and it was fantastic. So as my body is digesting those, I guess sometime last night, that there's a digestive cost to that, and so the body has to ramp up, and I don't know the exact percentage of the calories that are involved, but there is certainly a higher digestive cost. So to translate this, so people are saying, how does this work in real life? Well, number one, try to always eat. We talked about vegetables every meal. That's wonderful. And also have some protein with every meal. And then thirdly, have some fiber with every meal.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes in with, if you're getting your veggies, you're getting a lot of fiber. But in the case, if in case you may need to supplement the fiber, that can be helpful with psyllium, or some other kind of fiber supplement can be helpful for many cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like glucomannan. It's a fiber that's shown to slow digestive emptying, and it also lowers blood sugar
Oh,
dramatically.
that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool. I haven't.
recommend it for anyone that's diabetic. My father used to take it. Told me about it, 10, 15 years ago. But it's amazing to help control blood sugar, and it helps people lose weight.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah, glucomannan. It's from the
glucomannan.
konjac root. It's a plant that grows in Japan,
Uh-huh.
and it's something that they use all over Asia for people that are trying to lose weight or add more fiber, or who are diabetic. It's really key for anyone who's diabetic.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I think I may have run across that, but I did not have it on my radar. So
Yeah.
that's a great tip. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many cool things from around the world. So
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do. So why don't you tell us some of the supplements that you're familiar with that help to boost metabolism?
well, there's a ton of things, but I would probably start with looking at probably helping your body's system to detox, because if your liver is it's just many times I find people are overburdened by all the toxic chemicals that are we get in our air and our water and our food, and that's going to affect their hormonal system. So I would oftentimes start with something like maybe we talked about the fiber, but supplemental fiber, maybe some inositol cysteine,
Yeah.
NAC, is something that's oftentimes is helpful. Supplementing the B vitamins, which can help with energy production, also helps with detoxification. Getting enough magnesium, I find, is very helpful, because most people are deficient in magnesium. Getting in some of it's very ideally, I would like to, if I'm working with a customer, I suggest they do we get a full analytical an analytical blood test done, so we can actually look at what they need to do. Something like the spectrum testing might be ideal. Obviously, there are people that maybe don't have the money for that, or they're too busy or whatever. But so that's what some of the things I mentioned earlier are helpful. Vitamin C, I find, is very helpful. It's it's water soluble, and it's helpful for many functions. Those would be some off the top of my head that
Yeah.
I would use.
Are you into anything like green tea? Because I've read that green tea can help to boost your metabolism, and I've read all these studies that show
Oh yeah.
that people that
Yeah.
drink green tea or supplement with the green tea extract, that I think it's the ECCGs or the ECEG, I forget. That's the active ingredient in green tea, and the studies show that people who drink green tea every day or take green tea extract lose more weight than the control group that doesn't.
Yeah, green tea is very helpful, especially for and I'm with you. You're totally right. There are studies that show a positive association with weight loss. Also, it's very helpful for prevention of cancer, and that's something right now in my wife's family here in Spain. We're sort of trying to help a family member who's has a problem with breast cancer, and that's one of the things we've been recommending a lot for her is to drink a gallon of or a couple of liters of green tea, but she is a bit sensitive to the caffeine. So what we've been doing is using just decaf green tea. So you're still getting some of the benefits, or you can also do the supplemental form, the extract, so that you don't get, you may not want all the stimulation in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then there are those supplements that people can take that really boost your metabolism on a temporary basis. I actually used to take phentermine when I was I took it a long time ago, maybe in 2003. I just on this weight loss kick, and my doctor said, "Why don't I prescribe you some Phentermine?" So there are diet pills like that people can take. Can you talk? And they do work. They do temporarily increase your metabolism, but what is the cost long term of taking pills like this, or Dexatrim, or any kind of over-the-counter stimulant?
Yeah. Here's the thing with using a stimulant, any of these whether it's an OTC or, even the doctor prescribed stuff from the past, a lot of those are now illegal. And the reason, and with good reason, because it's not going to really cause fat loss. It is going to jack up your system. It's going to stimulate your central nervous system. It's sort of like whipping the horses. If you've got a horse and you take your horse out to go. I'm no great rider, but I do enjoy horses from time to time. So if you're out riding for hours, on your favorite horse, and your horse gets tired, and of course you've got a whip, and you could start to whip him, and he's going to run. But at some point he's going to totally fatigue and give out, and he's going to probably get injured. Okay, so that's the same thing that can happen with our body. If we are pushing our body too hard, too fast, either using artificial stimulants or the same thing, similar to that, over-exercising or under-eating or under-sleeping, I would put all those together, Wendy. Those are I've seen that a lot of times from very, very motivated, dedicated people and I find myself. I have to control myself too. The same thing with work. I mean, a lot of us in America, we tend to think more is better, right? And so we think, well, I'm just going to push a little harder with this stimulant. I'm going to work a little harder. I'm going to exercise a little harder. And the thing is, the metabolism doesn't work that way. It doesn't respond to more is better, and it will actually go in. You will stimulate the fight or flight mechanism, which means your body interprets all that as is there something wrong? There's some kind of an emergency situation, and so your body starts secreting cortisol. Okay, so even if you're taking these stimulants that we mentioned earlier, it's true that you probably won't have much of an appetite because you're so jacked up on these stimulants, and so so you don't eat, and so you may get a little short-term bump on the scale. But you're not. You're going to then have a rebound effect. That's why diets and crash diets, don't work. That's why studies show that 94% of people in America that lose weight regain it within 1 year. It's the same kind of thing because they haven't actually changed their lifestyle, and they're not working. They're working against their metabolism instead of working with it.
Yeah, because when you take any kind of stimulant, be it caffeine or diet pills or what have you, you are fatiguing your adrenals, and your adrenals produce your hormones, and
yes.
So that's going to cause this metabolic, wrecking ball. If you do anything that constantly taxes your adrenals, like eating lots of sugar and processed grains, and not sleeping enough, and taking diet pills, or drinking coffee all day long, any of those things, and really everything taxes your adrenal glands.
Sure.
They're very wimpy little glands. And so I think it's really important. People have to be consistent. They have to be consistent
Yes.
with working out 3 times a week and eating healthy on a consistent basis. And you have to be consistent.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the truth is, we don't really. It doesn't sound sexy to tell people this, but when people say, "What's the secret to to maximize your metabolism?" and I would say the secret is there is no secret. It's really about lifestyle.
Yeah. And so, I have a question I like to ask all of my guests. What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
Wow, great question. I would say confusion. I think that there's so much misinformation. Some of it, and I'm not, I don't like to get into conspiracy theory or anything like that. But it's very simple. I mean, if you, there's just so much information. We all are flooded with the internet and with how many cable, hundreds of cable channels and all this, and there's so much need for content that a lot of times there's not a good curation of that content, and so you get a lot of people have learned to think that they already know, what they need to eat, how to exercise, and what they need to do to be healthy. They think they already know it, so they say, "Oh, well, I already know that." But they're not actually. The thing is, they're oftentimes confused, and they're usually oftentimes implementing information that's wrong. And you and I both know that if you're doing the wrong strategies, then you're gonna get bad results. And so the problem is people will do the wrong thing, like people thinking that it's all that weight loss is all about mathematics, which we know it's not. It's once again back to my analogy. Weight loss and metabolism is it's more about your lifestyle, and that affects your body chemistry and your hormones. So it's a big circle, and so I would say the confusion is the biggest thing.
Yeah, yeah, there is a lot of confusion around nutrition and health, and that's why we started our websites.
Yeah.
I had that same thing when I was starting to learn about nutrition. I was going, what do I do? Do I go vegetarian or paleo, or it's just so confusing. And so
Yes.
that's why I started live110.com to try to give listeners a little bit more clarity on how they can address their health issues.
Yeah, well, I love what you're doing. Love your website, and in fact, I've got to do some serious content creation, and I'm gonna come over and check out what
Yeah.
you're doing and see if I get some new ideas.
Yeah.
And
Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about you and your health coaching program?
yeah, sure. So what I'm doing is helping people. I've got a ton of free information over at metabolicmotivation.com, just basically going into these topics we've talked about today and much more. And then, of course, there are a lot of people who are out there are realizing, they don't have time to read and study all this stuff themselves. It's sort of like, maybe with your taxes, or with, getting, I've got a new car. And I could go, I could change the oil. I could learn how to do that, or I could do my own taxes. But I don't really know. It's not my expertise. So I prefer to pay someone. Pay someone to do those things. And so a lot of times people feel the same way about, they may have a goal of wanting to lose some body fat, have more energy, and have better mental focus. Those are the three big things that we're doing a lot of work with. And so they want someone to create a customized plan for them, so that that actually fits their lifestyle, and then also provide some accountability, because we all need accountability at times, especially when we're doing a new thing. And so that's what we do with our health coaching program. And the way it starts off, if anybody's interested in, is we do a free consult, 10, 15 minutes on setup. We set up a time and we do a talk, like, on Skype, and kind of see if there's a good fit. And we answer people's, biggest question about their health, their fitness, their wellness, in that consult. And then if they want to continue on, we offer various programs that are anywhere at the minimum 3-month commitment, because, hey, if you do less than that, you're probably not going to get enough. You're not going to get real lifestyle results.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about something that Dan and I were not able to cover during our podcast, and that's how do you increase your metabolism permanently. It can be done with my Mineral Power program, which you can learn more about at mineralpower.com. When you do a hair mineral analysis, upon which this program is based, you can determine whether you are a slow or fast metabolizer. And how is this determined? It's determined by your calcium to phosphorus ratio. Many clients of mine who have a slow metabolism, or insulin resistance, or high blood sugar, or diabetes even, have really high calcium levels in their body. And what this does is it reduces cell permeability. Kind of imagine a cell. And if you have too much calcium around that cell, it reduces cell permeability. So nutrients can't get in, toxins can't get out, and glucose cannot get into the cells effectively. So it stays in your bloodstream, and that effectively raises your blood sugar. And by reducing the calcium levels in your tissues, by taking certain targeted supplements, healing your body, and by correcting your body chemistry, When this calcium is reduced, this solves a lot of metabolic problems in the body. And this is done by taking magnesium supplements and many, many other tips and tricks on Mineral Power, my Mineral Power program. And so that's the construction going on. So you can permanently correct your metabolism. It takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can be done. A lot of people don't realize that you can change your metabolism. You can change your body chemistry. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can always email me on the website, leave a comment, or sign up for my Mineral Power program. Leave a comment on the website. I can answer any questions that you have. And I can help you to increase your metabolism permanently. I've done it for myself. I've improved my metabolism dramatically over the last 3 years that I've been on my program, and I can help you to do it too. So thank you so much for listening to the Live to 110 podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to live110.com. Check out my online health program, bodybiorehab.com, and you can check out mineralpower.com. Thanks so much for listening to the Live to 110 podcast. Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into functional medicine?
Well, I guess first I'll start with functional medicine because a lot of people haven't heard about what that is. So functional medicine is about finding the cause, fixing the cause so that you can feel normal again. So basically, find the cause means we look at the body as a whole because everything in your body really is connected. And we understand the intricacies between hormone balance and brain health and digestion and the immune system and all of that because really it's all connected. And again, the goal is to find the root underlying cause and then treat that naturally, which usually means using diet, exercise, stress management, taking the right supplements, the herbs, using other kinds of natural treatments to really get your body back into balance so that you regain your health again and you feel normal again. So functional medicine is not Band-Aid medicine, which is what most medicine is these days. It's about really getting to the cause and fixing it. So that's what functional medicine is.
And so why is functional medicine important in helping to resolve the underlying causes of fatigue?
Well, I guess if you never get to the root cause, the fatigue is always going to be there and you'll be on medications for life or you're just going to keep suffering for life. So I find actually a common story when patients come to see me at my private practice at Functional Medicine Ontario. I often hear them say, Dr. Carey, I've been to my family doctor. They've run all the tests. Everything is normal. The doctor doesn't know what's wrong. They told me I need to take a vacation or I need to take 3 months off of work on burnout leave. Or my other option was to start an antidepressant. And patients know intuitively that there's something wrong inside. There's something out of balance. And so that's why they come to see me for functional medicine to really find what's wrong. Otherwise, like I said, you'll never get better.
Yeah. And so what are some of the underlying causes of fatigue?
Oh, that's a really good question. So in my book, Reclaim Your Energy and Feel Normal Again, I outline 8 out of the 14 basic causes that I found. So at the top of the list, the top 2, which should always be checked. And these are the 2 things that medical doctors typically check. First on the list is anemia. And second is thyroid. And actually, a lot of people have thyroid problems, even though they've been told their thyroid is normal.
Yeah.
And then above and beyond that, we have nutrient deficiencies. There can be food allergies and food sensitivities. There can be infections in the gut, like parasite infections or bacterial overgrowth or yeast infections. There can be imbalances within the brain. There can be many different reasons. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that when a patient comes in, I'm checking